Hi everyone, I'm Sarah and this is BudgetSew, where we create stylish, fashionable looks as inexpensively as possible. Today, I'm going to show you how to make your own maple leaf brooch, plus one more craft for Canada Day, but first, I'm going to show you one of my makes. Today, I'm wearing Vogue 1051 in a size 16. You may remember these pants from my vintage pattern haul, where I paired them with Vogue top 7871. The link to that pattern haul is right here at the top of the screen. I also made up these pants years ago to wear on a trip to England and Scotland. These pants are super comfortable. This is an Alice and Olivia Vogue American designer pant pattern that was published in 2008. I bought this pattern in a Vogue sewing pattern sale from Fabricland, a Canadian fabric retailer. At that time, Fabricland would have specific pattern brands on sale each week. For example, Vogue would be on sale one week and then McCALL'S the next, and then after that, Berta Style, then Simplicity, and so on. So almost every time I went to Fabricland, there would be patterns on sale. These pants have slightly flared legs, are semi-fitted through the hip, and have a below waistline contour waistband with fly zipper closing, front and back welt pockets, and back button loops. View A has contrast welts and loops, and View B has turn back cuffs. My version of the pants, View A, have an invisible zipper in the front rather than the front fly, and I didn't add the welts or the loops. The recommended fabrics are gabardine, tropical wool, and lightweight denim, and the contrast should be made from silk satin. I used 100% woven polyester that I bought from Fabricland for $4 a meter. It was 150 centimeters wide, and I bought 3.2 meters, the last of the bolts. In addition to the pants, I made a dress, Vogue 8992. Vogue 8992 is a lined wrap dress that is fitted through the bust, has the front extending into a collar, princess seams, inside ties, and hook and eye closing. It has a narrow hem and top stitching. View B has a stitched hem on the sleeves. You may remember this dress from my Vogue pattern haul video. The link to that video is right here at the top of the screen. To complete the look, I'm wearing a 9 West white t-shirt with grommet trim that I bought at Value Village. The shoes are Comfort Plus by Predictions that I bought from Payless Shoe Store. The purse, hat, and scarf also came from Value Village thrift stores. I repaired the handles of my purse using the same fabric as my pants. The link to the handbag handle repair video is right here at the top of the screen. Canada Day is celebrated every July 1st, and I thought it would be fun to try out another craft for my McCALL'S Needlework and Craft Annual, Volume 3, that was published in 1952. You may remember this annual from one of my videos, Stencil the Crown Pillow. The link to that video is right here at the top of the screen. My version of the McCALL'S Needlework and Craft Annual Volume 3 is the Canadian edition and features crafts with maple leaves. The cover of this annual is different than the American version, which shows an eagle and needlepoint, while the cover of the Canadian edition showcases 7 different crafts featuring the Canadian maple leaf. Today's crafts are based on Lesson 9 in the annual, Pottery. It says, pottery dishes and costume jewelry made from natural, oven firing, and air drying clay. Roll and cut it like cookie dough. Shape and mold it with your own deft fingers. Make it for the simple pleasure of creating. For the extra dash, the unusual touch to your home decoration, your costume, or your gift giving. At the top of the page are patterns for fruit, nut, and flower pins. The acorn and strawberry are simple flat pieces. The other fruit and flowers have leaves and blossoms cut from flat clay, molded into a shape. The berries, stems, and stamen are formed from clay coils and balls. At the bottom of the page is the pattern for the server, and beside that is the pattern for the ashtray. Enlarge the squares to 1 inch for both. To make a pin, eliminate the cigarette rest and use this pattern as actual size. Reduce the squares to 1/4 of an inch for the earrings. On the next page are the finished works. At the top of the page is the glistening jet black maple leaf server, about 11 inches across. The raised veins divided into 4 sections for holding a variety of tidbits. The stem forms the handle. Below that are the ashtray, earrings, and brooch. Snow white maple leaves etched with black veins. The ashtray is about 5 inches across. The pin is 2.5 inches across, and the matching earrings are a smart accent for a black dress. Beside that are the fruit, flower, and nut pins. Charming costume jewelry. The acorn and strawberry are flat. The bunchberry, jack-in-the-pulpit, trillium, and raspberries with matching earrings are delicately molded into their natural shapes. These were all great ideas, so I decided to make a maple leaf server, brooch, and earrings. The instructions recommended using natural, oven firing, air drying, or self-hardening clay. I didn't have any of that, so I found a recipe for salt dough ornaments and used that instead. The recipe used 4 cups of flour, 1 cup of salt, and 1.5 cups of warm water. I added all 3 ingredients into a large bowl and mixed it up by hand. The salt dough ornament instructions said, knead until dough is firm and smooth. Roll out dough and cut desired shapes. Bake at 300 degrees Fahrenheit until dry, approximately 1 hour. Cool completely. This made a lot of dough for this project. I really should have halved the recipe. I found that there wasn't quite enough water in the recipe, so I added small amounts of water until the ingredients were combined. Do not add too much water or it will be runny. A little drop of water goes a long way. This kneading used a lot of arm power. The muscles in my arm were so sore after all that kneading, but it was worth it. The McCALL'S Needlework and Craft Annual's instructions list the materials needed for the project. For natural clay, articles must be kiln fired. Use white clay for white leaves or apply white slip before first firing. For oven firing clays, follow instructions for making and finishing according to the manufacturer's instructions. For air drying or self-hardening clays, follow instructions for making. Allow to dry thoroughly. Paint with poster paints and protect with transparent nail polish or manufacturer's recommended glaze. And there was a note. It is best to make the ashtray of kiln or oven firing clay and finish with glazes. The annual's instructions for preparing and cutting the clay were: Step 1. Cut kneaded clay over a wire to check for air bubbles. Step 2. Roll out the clay. Use sticks as guides for uniform thickness. Step 3. Place pattern pieces on the clay. Cut out shapes with a sharp tool. Before I continue with this craft, please like and share this video with your friends and family. I would love to help others sew and refashion on a budget and troubleshoot their favorite patterns. I also love sharing the treasures that I find at thrift shops. If you'd like to see more from BudgetSew, please subscribe and make sure that the bell is on so you receive a notification when I release a new video. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at BudgetSew. Now, back to the DIY. My next step was to roll out the salt dough, and I enlisted the help of my fellow YouTuber, Engineer Corner, to assist. We started by rolling out a quarter of the dough and left the remaining dough in the bowl. We probably should have done the rolling out on the kitchen counter because the plastic tablecloth slid around quite a bit. I held the cloth down while Engineer Corner rolled out the dough. After that, we placed our templates on the dough and cut it out using knives. If you're cutting the dough on the kitchen table, I recommend placing a cutting board in between the dough and the tabletop to prevent knife marks cutting into the table. We didn't press very hard while cutting out our dough, and the tablecloth created a cushion so the table was not marked. Engineer Corner used a large maple leaf template for the bowl. I found this free maple leaf template online instead of enlarging the server template from the annual. I liked the design of this template because it looked more like a real maple leaf. I'll post the link to the free template in the description box of this video. For the earrings, I traced the photographed image of the pin from the annual because the earrings pictured were too small for the clip-on earring backs that I purchased off Amazon.ca. And I liked the size of the brooch. When cutting out the earrings, I struggled to show the delicate finer points of the leaves. It looked like a starburst rather than a maple leaf. Maybe if I'd rolled the dough thinner, it might have been easier. The McCALL'S Needlework and Crafts Annual had working procedures for making patterns. It said, patterns for fruit, flower, and nut jewelry, and maple leaf pin are actual size. Trace patterns onto tracing paper with a hard pencil. See how to make working tracings on page 100. Make paper patterns for maple leaf server, ashtray, and earrings from diagrams, following instructions for how to enlarge by squares on page 100. This annual has all the tips and tricks you need to easily complete this craft. Once Engineer Corner had cut out his template, he added more details to make the leaf more realistic. He added the midrib and the veins to the leaf by lightly pressing the knife into the dough and drawing lines similar to the ones on the template. He chose to freestyle the veins rather than use the template, so the leaf had its own artistic flair. The annual also included instructions on assembling and shaping your clay. It said, first, prepare slip by making small amounts of clay with water to the consistency of heavy cream. Slip is used for joining clay sections and mending cracks. Whenever one piece joins another, apply slip and press firmly together. If one of the fruit or nut brooches had been made, the berries, stems, and stamens would need to have slip applied to the backs in order to make them stick to the flowers and the leaves. Engineer Corner's next step was to curve the leaf as recommended by the annual, while I rolled out more dough for the brooch, having given up on the earrings. I hoped the brooch would be easier to make because of its size. Engineer Corner used a slotted turner spatula to lift his leaf off the table so that the edges would not tear. Then he put it in an oven-safe bowl that was smaller than the maple leaf he cut out. This caused the edges of the leaf to curve upwards along the sides of the bowl. I didn't think that the salt dough would stay upright in the oven if I put it in a cookie sheet, but the Anchor brand oven-safe bowls seemed like a good idea. I continued to shape my brooch using a paring knife and the template that I traced from the annual. Using the tip of my knife, I drew the midrib and the veins of the leaf to make it appear more realistic. The annual continued with more shaping tips. When shaping pieces into a curve, keep clay moist enough to coax into a curve without cracking. Let dry until firm. Then smooth with a wooden modeling tool and a damp sponge. This is very important because the server, ashtray, and most of the brooches are not flat pieces of clay. They are curved and shaped upwards to create depth to the pieces. Once I finished cutting and shaping my maple leaf brooch, I placed it in the small Anchor brand oven-safe bowl so that the edges would curve upwards as well. Then I baked both salt dough maple leaves in the oven for 1 hour at 300 degrees. The large maple leaf took an additional 20 minutes in the oven for it to be thoroughly dry. Then I popped them out of the bowls and let them cool overnight. My next step was to paint the leaf red, just like the maple leaf on the Canadian flag. I used apple barrel acrylic paint in color 21469, flag red. I bought this 2 fluid ounces or 59 milliliter bottle from Amazon.ca for 97 cents. I'll post a link to this paint in the description box of this video. The back of the bottle says, "Versatile, high-quality acrylic paint for crafts. Excellent coverage, fast drying, water-based, and non-toxic. Use on all porous surfaces. Shake well. Let dry 1 hour between coats. Clean while wet with soap and water." I painted both the top and the bottom of the leaves red so that no salt dough was left unfinished. The McCALL'S annual had a section about drying the clay. It said, "Dry pieces thoroughly before painting or firing. Moisture left in the firing type clays will generate steam and cause pieces to crack or burst. Drying time varies with the type of clay, weather, and the size of the article. Small articles of oven-fired clay should be thoroughly dry in about 24 hours. Large articles of natural clay will take a week to dry. Turn from time to time during the drying period to avoid warping. When bone dry, the article is ready for painting or firing." For my salt dough, I made sure that it was fully dried in the oven so that it wouldn't get moldy. The paintbrush I used was a number 1 Demco Series 346 RD brush that I bought when I was in college. It's a filbert brush with a flat and oval-shaped end with medium to long hairs. It's good for blending and soft rounded edges like flower petals. This brush is a combination of the round brush because it can be used for detail and the flat brush because it can cover more space than the round brush. For those firing their clay, the annual had further instructions. If the article is to be underglazed, apply the underglaze before the first firing. Fire natural clay in a kiln to cone 05. Let the article remain in the kiln until it's cool enough to touch with bare hands. Once the large maple leaf was painted, I moved on to the brooch. I painted both the front and the back of the brooch, just like the large maple leaf. I didn't want to leave any salt dough unfinished. My mom's dog thought that the cooked salt dough ornaments smelled really good, so it's best to seal the entire item to prevent nibbles from pets. Also, keep this dough out of the reach of pets. All that salt and flour can't be good for their little tummies. I kept my ornaments in a shoebox on the top of my refrigerator until it was time to paint them. If you are happy with your red maple leaf, you can skip this step and move on to the ceiling. I wanted to add a bit of artistic flair to my maple leaves, so I added some details with gold paint. I used Deco Art's Crafters acrylic paint in spun gold. I bought a small bottle of 4 fluid ounces or 118 milliliters for $2 at Dollarama, a Canadian dollar store. You may remember this paint from my Stencil the Crown Pillow video. The link to that video is in the description box of this video. The bottle said, use this value-priced metallic finish acrylic to paint general craft and home decor projects. Shake well. Apply with a brush or sponge. Water-based, permanent, fast drying, and intermixable with soap and water cleanup. This paint was perfect for my project. It's a permanent, water-based, easy cleanup paint at a great price. I added gold details along the midrib, veins, and edges of the maple leaf with my filbert brush, and then feathered out the paint using another brush. The second paintbrush I used was a number 2 Robert Simmons 748L brush that I also bought when I was in college. It's a fan brush with flat spread hairs. It's good for smoothing, blending, and feathering, as well as textural effects, clouds, and leaves on trees. I used a dry fan brush to gently feather the metallic gold into the flag red paint. I applied a small amount of gold paint and then used my fan brush to feather. Do not let the gold paint dry. Work in little sections around the leaf while the gold paint is still wet. Remember to feather the gold paint on the front and the back of the bowl and brooch so that it's continuous. The annual recommended using air drying clay and poster paints or figurine enamels for the flower, fruit, and nut pins, and to decorate them in natural colors. Another reason I added gold paint to the leaf was because the jewelry in the annual was painted with more than one color. For example, the annual suggested that the strawberry should be decorated as follows: dark green leaves with lighter green veins, hulls, and stems. Red berries with yellow dots tipped with black. The acorn should have dark green leaves, a brown nut, dark brown stem, leaf veins, cap edges, and details on the cap and nut. Don't stress about this step. It's not very precise and it's just artistic. Use one brush to apply the gold paint, and then use the other brush to drag the paint away from the edges and the veins so that it's not a solid, thick line of paint. The more you use the dry brush, the more feathered the gold paint will be. Once I finished the leaf bowl, I moved on to the brooch. I used a smaller amount of gold paint on my brush because the brooch was smaller and I didn't want the gold paint to appear like a blob in the center of my pin. I feathered the gold paint on both the front and the back of the brooch so that it was continuous and more realistic. The gold paint adds more depth to the brooch and bowl and complements the flag red paint. The gold and red remind me of leaves in the fall season. Autumn is my favorite time of year. I love the changing color of the leaves, all the yellows, oranges, reds, browns, and gold. My next step was to seal the painted salt dough bowl and pin. The annual recommended protecting the jewelry with transparent nail polish or the manufacturer's recommended glaze, so I used Clear Top Coat Plus Nail Polish by Nicole by Opie that I bought many years ago from Shoppers Drug Mart. I started in one area and worked my way around the leaf, making sure to get the clear coat into all the crevices. Both the front and the back of the leaves should be coated in sealant. The instructions in the annual for glazing clay were: mix all glazes for a natural clay to consistency of heavy cream. Stir thoroughly before using. Flow onto surface with even strokes. 3 coats are usually needed to assure the desired 1/64 of an inch thickness. Rub each application gently to remove air holes. Fire to cone 0.5. The clear nail polish dried quite quickly, so I was able to paint both the front and the back of the bowl and pin in one sitting. I applied 1 coat of clear nail polish and it gave the leaves a beautiful sheen. I was careful not to touch the tacky nail polish as I applied the clear coat around the leaf. I didn't want my fingerprint to be a permanent feature on this project. Once it was dry, I touched up any missing spots. More than 1 coat of clear nail polish may be applied, but I was content with just 1. My last step was to add the pin clip. I bought my 30mm gold-colored metal brooch pin back clips from Amazon.ca. There were 50 in a package for $8.79 Canadian, so these remaining clips will be used for other projects. These clips are easy to open and the perfect size. The backs are flat with 2 holes, making them perfect to glue crafts, including beads, felt flowers, fabric, and patches, or sew thread through the holes to attach fabric to the front. I used a small amount of super glue to stick the pin back to the brooch. Be very careful not to get any glue on your hands or other surfaces. The last thing you want to do is glue your hand to the brooch or to the table. The annual suggested that household cement should be used for the jewelry, but I didn't have any of that. Super glue worked just as well. Here are the finished crafts. Enjoyed my Canada Day craft. Love it or leave it. Please like and share this video with your friends and family. I love sharing my new, vintage, and out-of-print sewing patterns and my tips, tricks, quick fixes, and even my mistakes when sewing along with you. I also love sharing my wonderful fabric finds that I thrifted from charity shops, as well as bought brand new online and in-store. If you'd like to see more from BudgetSew, please subscribe and press the notification bell so you receive a notification when I release a new video. If you'd like to stay up to date with BudgetSew, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at BudgetSew. Thanks for watching. See you next time.